Erev Tov. We're in Perek Chaf, Mesillas Yeshorim and Mishkal Chasidus in the middle of the Perek. And just to recap what we have so far. By Chasidus, there's an extra issue that the Mesillas Yeshorim inserts that is different than the rest of the other prakim. Always he explains what it is and what are the parts and how to acquire it and how to be careful not to lose it, mafsidim. And here he has on one more issue that he says is very, very important. And if you don't have this, then it's not possible to be successful in Chasidus. On the contrary, it's very dangerous. And he says there's a certain balance or weighing or decision making about Chasidus. It's called Mishkal Chasidus, how to weigh Chasidus. People make a mistake and think the Mishkal Chasidus is to make a decision of which Chasidus to do, a big Chasidus or the other, which one is a better Chasidus to do. But as he explains, we saw that's not the point. The point is that a person could think that he's doing a big Chasidus, really he's doing a big Avera. As long as he's on track of being a tzaddik and doing what it says, so then he's safer because he's on track. But once he's going to do beyond the law, so he thinks he's doing sometimes a bigger mitzvah, and sometimes it could be that he's doing a bigger avera. And he explained first of all that you have to have three prerequisites in order to be able to make a proper decision. And he calls them, in short, he calls them Tmimus HaMachshava, Iyun, and Bitachon. First, he has to be without any ulterior motive. Only his intention is only to his purpose is only to make a nachas ruach for Hashem. He has no other motives, purposes, and that he has to have his mind set, focused very much on this study and making sure that he's studying what he's doing, and see that it's going to bring the purpose that he wants it to. And the third thing is that he should have bitachon and trust in Hashem, that Hashem should help him in this decision-making process. He says he has to have Yasha Shabal Vavos, and he has to have Iyun Gadol, and Hashlech Yavo Al Hashem. And if not, then probably he's going to make a mistake. He makes it clear, like a few times, he says in the positive and the negative, you have to have these conditions. If not, it's probable he's going to fall. But if a person has all these conditions, then Hashem is going to watch. He shouldn't make a mistake in his Chasidus. What is the issue? Then he explains the issue is that a person shouldn't just judge the act that he's doing, if it's a Maisa Chasidus, but he has to see all of the ramifications that it could have, the subsequent results, consequences that might happen because of his Chasidus, and that could have a bad ramification. And therefore you're not supposed to do it. If it's a mitzvah, you don't have this mishkal. You do the mitzvahs that Hashem said, you don't have cheshbonos. But since here it's talking about a chasidus, so he has to take into account the consequences that might happen because of his chasidus, and sometimes we're going to tell him not to do it. And if he does it, not only won't it be a chasidus, but it'll be a big avera. That's the point of mishkal chasidus.
Somebody's going to do the chasidus, he's going to get a bigger sachar from it?
In which case?
If he does it the right way?
If he does it the right way, he gets closer to Hashem. That isn't the point of the chassid. The intention of the chassid is not interested in himself. It's true that before in Kavanas Chasidus he said that's not his interest. His interest is because he wants to give Hashem pleasure and kavod for Hashem. But surely the chassid will be closer to Hashem. That's also true. But that's not his motivation. But here he's saying that if he makes a mistake in this cheshbon, not only is he not going to be a chassid, but he's going to be doing a big avera. He thinks he's doing a big chassidus, really he's doing a big avera. When a person, the bigger a person becomes, you might say that he's in more danger of making a mistake. Like the higher he is, the harder he could fall. What did they say? The bigger he is, the harder he falls. The person that's on a low madrig, he goes up 1 step, 2 steps. So if he falls, he fell down 2 steps. If he goes very high, so then he's vulnerable to make a big fall. But here he's saying the reason why he might make a big fall is because he thinks he's doing a big mitzvah. In the kiyos also, we spoke out that in the kiyos also a person has to make sure he's not making any mistakes and he doesn't have any negiyos. Over there the negiyos was because he had a bid midah, he had a taiva, he had some kind of personal gain. Here his Yetzer Hara is not the personal gain. Here the Yetzer Hara is because he wants to do good. It's a very subtle kind of a Yetzer Hara. He wants to be good. He wants to give Hashem pleasure, but he doesn't realize that in doing this chasidus, he's really going to cause a big error to happen. So something bad is going to happen. So you have to be ahead of the game. You have to always think ahead. What could happen? What could be the ramifications of my act? Doesn't it make sense? That's he brought two proofs. One was from Gedalia ben Achikam and the Bayis Rishon, and one was from the Bayis Sheni Kamsa Bar Kamsa, that Gedalia ben Achikam intended to do a chasidus, that even when he was informed that there might be assassination plots, he didn't want to hear of it, and he wasn't choshesh, and that was a chasidus. And I think you are allowed to. And he thought he'd be a chassid and not be choshesh for it at all. And that ended up that he was assassinated, and everybody who was left had to disperse. And that's considered like extinguishing the last flame. And even though it was a Chasidus, but it was a misplaced Chasidus. And the second point was Kamsa Bar Kamsa, that over there, Rabbi Zechariah ben Avkulis, that he was also a Chasidus, the Chashash, that if they're going to bring the korban, he brought a korban from the emperor, and he made a mum, he made a blemish because he wanted to get Am Yisrael in trouble, and he knew they're not going to bring it. And really the Chazal said they would have brought it. Chazal would have made an emergency measure that they're allowed to bring the korban even though it had a mum, or to kill Kabar Kamsa, that he shouldn't go and slander them. But Rabbi Zechariah ben Avkulis had a gzeira. He thought that it was not proper, it might cause bad ramifications. Also he was thinking of the ramifications, but he taught the wrong way. This is the Mesillas Shom's two proofs that there's a misplaced Chasidus. And from there he
what the korban and with
the first one was Gedalia ben Achikam, that he didn't accept the slander that he was informed that someone wanted to assassinate him. And the second case was about the korban, that they didn't want to bring the korban even though there was a danger he might go to tell the emperor that they were rebelling, and that's what happened, and they came to destroy Yerushalayim. There's a question. Someone this past week someone asked me a question on this. I don't have an answer. That the Mesillas Shalom makes it sound like Rabbi Zechariah ben Avkulis' mistake was that he wasn't thinking of the ramifications.
It's done either way.
It's done either way, and you can't say he didn't take into consideration the fact that there might be a destruction. That was the whole subject. They knew that this man is going to go back and tell the emperor. They knew what he wanted to do. So it wasn't like he wasn't taking that into consideration, but he had a different consideration that he thought was overriding. You can say he was wrong, but the mistake wasn't that he didn't think about it. It wasn't like he says.
There was the Mishkal. The Mishkal was there.
Right, but he made a mistake in the Mishkal.
Right.
But so there was a mistake. I'm going to say because he wasn't Yasher Shabbat Vavos, or because he wasn't Ma'ayin enough, or he didn't have Bitachon. That's not our business. But the Mesillas Shalom says, what should you do? You have to think of the consequences also. Not only of the act itself, but also think of the possible consequences. He surely was thinking of the possible consequences. That was the whole issue. When they came, they wanted to be makravit because he's going to go slander. So they were definitely had on the table that there's a danger he's going to go to danger for Am Yisrael. So it's a little difficult how he proves from there the issue of thinking ahead. He was thinking ahead, but it wasn't like he didn't think of that. He knew that's a possibility, but it's a wrong decision. But it's not because of being lax in or overlooking the possible consequences. He was looking at the possible consequences. So the Raya l'chara needs understanding. The Raya is difficult. But what does he conclude from it?
The idea was the Sanu side, that Rash that you gave.
So it was a misplay. That part he shouldn't have been. He should know who he was. He should have thought ahead and he shouldn't have acted in humility in a way that it have wrong ramifications. Maybe I don't know if he means that.
You only word it as a drash, but maybe that's really the pshat.
Maybe I don't know if he means that. I'm still sure if he means that. I'm not sure. And after that, so he just concluded, just to read it again. That it's not enough just to look at the superficial act that you want to do, but you have to look on both sides, every possibility, to see the different ramifications as much as a person could. Of course, a person is only human, but as much as a person's intellect allows him, he should judge all the possible consequences. Till he could judge which would be better, the act or the restraint, not to do it. To do the Chasidus or not to do the Chasidus. That's as far as we got. So he said the issue, he said the prerequisites in order to make the decision. It has to be with Yasher Shabbat Vavos, without any piniyah, and he should be studying the subject as much as he can, and also bitachon. And the issue is to see the consequences and not to just judge superficially at what he's doing. And now he's going to give 3 applications, just also examples. Before he gave 2 examples as proofs that you saw in the history that people made a mistake, and now he's going to give 3 examples. You can have other examples also, but he picked 3 examples of a Chasidus that could lead by its ramifications to a Aveira, and it's not worth it. The first one, the Torah commands you're supposed to give rebuke to your fellow man. If you see somebody doing wrong, you're supposed to rebuke him. Sometimes a person is going to try to rebuke people, sinners, in a time or place where they're not going to listen to him. His words are not going to be heard. It's going to come upon deaf ears. So he's not chayiv to rebuke, because they're not going to listen anyway. The Gemara says that if there's a possibility they will listen, so then you do have to say. But if you know for sure they're not going to listen, so you don't have to say. So a person might want to be a chassid, he wants to go beyond the letter of the law, and even though he's potter, still he's going to. It's a chasidus that they're not going to listen anyway, but he feels that he wants to be mischased, he wants to be extra pious and rebuke them even though they're not going to listen. So on one hand you say it's a chasidus, he's doing beyond the letter of the law. But on the other hand, he says that's going to cause worse. What?
He's nudging.
I'm sorry?
He's nudging. He's someone who's nudnik.
A nudnik. But that wouldn't be so bad yet.
The thing is, he wants everybody to do mitzvahs. This is the chassid.
Right, he really intends to do mitzvahs. He really wants it, but he has to take into consideration.
It's not only the mitzvah of a
chiyach,
he wants them to go on this path because then he wants
Kvod Shemayim, like the Kanoi we said before, that he cares about the Kvod Shemayim and both. We said it twice already. So you're right. So he really has a good reason why he really cares. He's not doing it because of a bad midah. He's doing it only pure motivations. But he doesn't realize that a bad consequence is going to happen.
But he is living in La La Land.
Okay.
So what's he supposed to take into consideration? A possible ramification. They're gonna now, as a reaction to his rebuke, they're gonna do even worse, like the spite or whatever word you want to use. To how they're gonna, the reaction is going to be a bad reaction. If he'd be quiet, they would do the avera and it would go past. But now the fact that he's making a reaction to it, so it's going to cause a bigger chilul Hashem, and it's going to become worse. Till now they were chayit, now it's going to be pesha. I'm not sure if he means to say mazid, whatever. I'm not sure what he means. If he means to hint that now they're going to be doing it intentionally, but here the Chasidus is the opposite, not to rebuke. He thought superficially that the Chasidus would be to rebuke, even though he's the potter, and Chiddush is no, that is better not to. Just like it's a mitzvah to say that which will be heard, also it's a mitzvah not to say that which will not be heard. The Gemara continues over there that it's a chova, you're not allowed to. It's not only a chasidus, it's a chova not to rebuke. The words of the Mishnah of the Mesillas Shomer are a bit. He says it's not a chasidus elo lishtok. Enam a chasidus elo lishtok. The chasidus is not to rebuke. The chasidus is to be quiet. You can say even better. L'chora. Not only it's not a chasidus to rebuke, it's a chova not to rebuke. He's mechuyev not to rebuke. The Gemara says if this situation, it's not just going to be a lack of chasidus, it's going to be an avera, like he started off saying before. Not only won't be a chasidus, it'll be a chote, v'lo chasid. So here he doesn't say it exactly, but l'chora should be included also. That if you would rebuke in a place where it's going to cause a chilul Hashem, the people are going to overreact, and not only that, listen to him, they're going to do worse. So then it's avera to rebuke them. This is his first example of misplaced chasidus. Second example, Re'ei Pashut. It's surely appropriate that a person should go as fast as he can, run to do a mitzvah. To try to be those who are participating in the mitzvah. So that will be a chasidus, that a person would try to run to do a mitzvah. But sometimes you're not supposed to. Sometimes you're not supposed to run to do a mitzvah. Sometimes it might cause a fight. Everyone's fighting to do the mitzvah, and there's going to be a fight. So then the chasidus would be to refrain, let somebody else do the mitzvah. By people running to do the mitzvah, sometimes it's going to cause a bigger degradation to the mitzvah. And the contrary, it's not going to be a kavod for the mitzvah, it's going to be a degradation if people are fighting. And it's going to be more of a chilul shem shamayim than a kavod. It's going to be profaning the name of Hashem rather than honoring the name of Hashem. And he brings a medrash that says such a story. In such a case, surely it's the chassid is chayiv to refrain from doing that mitzvah that he wants to do and not to chase after it. There's going to be a medrash that says now that you find that the number of the Leviim did not progress as much as the other Shvatim. The Leviim did not multiply as much as the other Shvatim. And the medrash says because since they had the responsibility to carry the Oron, so they would fight over the schus to be able to carry the Oron, and they would die because they were acting not properly in front of the Oron. The Oron.
They didn't have a lottery or anything like that.
So because of this, the Medrash says that's why it says that you should. I forgot the lashon of the pasuk, but it says that you should put them on their jobs. The Medrash says because of this problem, so Hashem told that Aaron should be in charge, and he should tell which Levi is in charge of which job. In the beginning, it wasn't allocated who's supposed to do what. So everyone tried to do it. Like they pushed in order to get it. You see sometimes other kind of pushings.
Yeah.
You'll see nowadays also people try to do mitzvahs and they push. So they might mean l'shem shamayim, not a bad midah. There's one person who's a bad midah because he wants to get the chalent, So that's not a chasidus. That's not mishkal chasidus. That's just bad midas. But here a person is trying to do a mitzvah and he's pushing to do a mitzvah and he thinks it's a kavod. But no, because other one's also pushing. If he'd be the only one who's there to do the mitzvah, then he should run to do it.
Trying to carry the
aron, the aron of the niftar.
Yeah.
They consider it for some reason a kavod. They consider it a kavod that everyone's pushing. I don't see it, but it's also dangerous. It depends on the level of people, and many people. Yeah. So surely that would be a chasidus to stand back. And even if he thinks that if he's doing it, let's say if he's doing it because he wants to get the schus, so then it's not a issue of chasidus at all. That wouldn't be the chasidus. If he thinks because it's a kavod, he's doing a kavod to Hashem that he's wants to be the one. Everyone showing how much they want to do the mitzvah and to honor the niftar, but he has to realize that if it causes a chilul Hashem, then on the contrary, you're not supposed to do it. So the chasidus would be to step back and let other people. So that's his example of the Aron, that it says that because the Leviim were not allocated who's supposed to do which job, so they were all trying to get to do the Aron. It says here because schar meruba, they got a lot of schar. There also wasn't chasidus over here. They wanted to do it because they got schar. But as a result, so there was fighting, and since it was acting inappropriately in front of the Aron, so people died. So Hashem said to Aaron that he should allocate who does what. So again, that's another example of someone who the Chorah is doing a chasidus, but in essence it's not a chasidus. The chasidus is the opposite.
Just was why the number was so small in the tribe?
What is that?
The Levium were the smallest.
I think so, yes. 22,000, 23,000, yes. And I think also the point is that it didn't progress. There was a point where it should have progressed more and it didn't progress. We don't see that they got bigger in number. Because of that, according to the Medrash, because of that point that they were dying because of the inappropriate conduct in front of the Aron, until it was organized that they shouldn't.
Well, that's why it's so small? They shouldn't make it?
According to that Medrash, he brings you the reference. That's what it says over there. The Medrash also over there. How come the number was not progressing? So it says here, since they knew that anybody that carries the Aron, his reward is great. Another problem may be that no one was interested in carrying the shulchan and the menorah and the mizbechos because they wanted to go for the Aron. They wanted to go for the top. It doesn't say that was the problem here. That also might have been a problem, that it's not covered to the other kelim. But they were pushing, I want to hold on over here, I want to hold on over here. So that was acting lightheaded in front of the Aron. Because of that, they were acting lightheadedness, they forgot where they are, and then they suffered from the acting inappropriately in front of the Aron. So that's why they died. So here's another case of an example of a chilul Hashem that was caused by a chasidus. The case here happens to not be the chasidus. They were doing it because they wanted reward. That wouldn't be a chasidus. But you see the idea. It's good enough for an example that they're trying to do something which is not. They didn't have to, but they wanted to. And on the contrary, it caused the chilul Hashem. So the chassid should hold back. A third example. As far as the mitzvah goes, if it wouldn't be a chasidus, if it would be actual commandment, so you have to do the mitzvahs with all of its intricacies before who it may be. You don't care who's in front, who's there, and they disagree and they're ridiculing. That's not a cheshbon. If you have to do a mitzvah, you do a mitzvah, and you don't take into consideration that people are laughing. Not to be scared or embarrassed. David said that I speak about your commandments before kings, and I'm not embarrassed. I'm not ashamed. The Mesillas brought this down earlier in the Sefer when he spoke about Chevra Ra in the issue of Mafsidi as heroes. He brought down that not to be impressed with people's ridicule. Don't stay together with people that don't machshav the mitzvahs. And David HaMelech over there is an example that he didn't care that in the company of kings he'd be expected to act like the other kings that talk about all of their tanugim and riches and successes in war. And he spoke about Hashem's commandments. And he didn't care that other kings weren't machshav it, like the frum king. V'chein shaninu heviaz kan nomer. That says in Pirkei Avos you're supposed to be bold like a leopard. The boldness is that you act what you think is right, even if people that don't agree. So that's all true as far as mitzvahs are. That's his introduction. He didn't get to the point yet. When it has to do with a mitzvah, then he's supposed to do the mitzvahs even if it's in front of people that are ridiculing, and not to be embarrassed. But you have to discern. It depends. This only applies to mitzvahs that are actually an obligation. An obligation, a mitzvah which is not a chasidus, but you're obligated. Over there, you do what you're supposed to do and you don't care what people say. Over there, you're supposed to make your face like a stone. Chalamish is a kind of a stone that's very hard, that they call it a flintstone, a very hard kind of a stone that you don't care what people say. You don't back off. You don't get
the Gates said they don't wear the talis out. On Shabbos, when they walk with the talis, they put it under their coat.
Why is that?
Because it's like the shepherds, the goyim. They get like
right. So that would be another example. It's not this example. It's not. Here's going to say an example that people are going to laugh. The Jew people. That's it. There's a different cheshbon because you're not supposed to. It's not their land. They're supposed to realize that it's not their land. They don't belong there. They don't belong there. They're guests, and they shouldn't make it as if they're taking over. So they shouldn't show their as if they are doing as if they're the balabatim. He's going to say a different example. That also be a good example. When it's a mitzvah chova, over there you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do, and you don't care what people say. This is going to be some additional chasidus. That's not mamash chova. It's not an obligation. He wanted to do it because he wanted to go beyond the letter of the law as a chasidus. If he's going to do it in front of the multitudes of people, the plain people that are not holding on that level of chasidus, they're going to laugh and ridicule him. So what's wrong? Why does he have to take into consideration their laughter and ridicule? He might say, I'm doing my chasidus and they're laughing. I don't care. So he says, no, you have to take into consideration you're causing them to sin. This is a big chasidus. The cheshbon of the chasidus is very interesting. That the reason why you shouldn't do a chasidus in front of people who might laugh is because their laughter is an aveira, and you're causing them to do an aveira. So better not to do the chasidus. Hashem doesn't want people to do aveiras, and your chasidus is causing them to do an aveira. It's an interesting outlook, cheshbon, how to analyze it. That my chasidus is going to cause them to laugh, and they're doing an aveira. They're going to be sinning and punished because of him. He could have not done it. He wasn't obligated. This is not an absolute obligation. He didn't have to. So better not to. It's more appropriate that the chassid should not do it rather than to do it. Interesting. I found it very interesting. The whole cheshbon. He makes a cheshbon. I'm going to do a mitzvah, but because of my mitzvah, they're going to do an aveira of laughing at me, and they shouldn't get punished for laughing. They're wrong for laughing.
It's not because of the mitzvah, because of the chasidus.
If it will be a mitzvah,
they should do the mitzvah.
You do the mitzvah, even if they're going to laugh. I can't take into consideration their laughter.
My mitzvah, but the chasidus is the reason that they're going to laugh.
Right. To take into consideration that they're going to laugh and they're going to get punished, and they're wrong. They're wrong for laughing. It isn't that they're right for laughing. They're wrong for laughing. It's a good chasidus, and from my level, it's the right thing to do. But they don't understand it, and they're going to laugh, and they're going to be punished for it. So I shouldn't do the mitzvah on their cheshbon.
If I go with a lulav on the street and I have to do my mitzvah, and they laugh, it's their problem.
Right. But if I'm doing a chasidus, so then I should take into consideration that their laughter is going to cause them a chet.
I saw something funny. I wasn't laughing. I just couldn't believe it. And he's wearing his shleimel, and he's wearing his thing, and then he's wearing a coat. This Friday night. I said, how crazy could this guy be?
A lot of these things have to do with it's not a chasidus at all.
It's just a crazy.
It's a culture. It's a culture, but it's a culture. It's a culture.
Friday night, you know how.
That's a culture. That's a culture.
I can't believe it. I'm boiling hot in my shirt, and this guy's wearing a coat Friday night.
Yeah, a lot of this wouldn't be the subject now, but
that might be the chasidus. He doesn't carry. He doesn't trust the Eruv. Could be.
But why does he need a coat?
Why does he need a coat?
The code is because that's the lavush. That's the part of the lavush. So the question is that chasidus. So in our term of chasidus, after we defined chasidus, so a lot of things that people call chasidus have to be revisited. Is it a chasidus? So if there's a certain culture that has a certain way of dress, so it's nothing to do with chasidus. It has to do with a way of dress. That's all. It's just identification with a certain
he's called
class of people.
Because that's the class that he is, but that's not Chasidus.
That's not Chasidus. There are many things, many customs that are not Chasidus at all. You just wear, like, how do they say, when you're in Rome, you dress like the Romans. So if you want to be part of this group, you have to dress the way that they're dressing. Why did they make such a kind of a dress? The shtreimel was in cold Europe. It wasn't in a hot. They had a different, but that's not Chasidus.
People wearing suits on Shabbos. People would say, like, how can people wear suits? Like, it's so hot. It's like in the middle of summer. They're wearing these suits. They say that as well.
So what are we going to answer to that question? That a person who's dignified, everyone agrees that a dignified person goes with a suit. If the Rosh Hashanah is going to be going on a hot day and he's wearing a suit, no one's going to have a kasha, take off your jacket. So a person who's dignified, I'm going dignified. That's okay. But the question would be, if someone's wearing a winter outfit in the summer, so why is that? Where did that come from? So historically, somehow it came to become the culture of their way of dress. So is it right? Is it wrong? You can talk about it, but it's not the subject of Chasidus. There's no Chasidus in it. It's just a way of dress. That's not called a mitzvah. They don't get any schar for it. It's just a way of identifying with a certain people that they decided that this is our garb.
It's those ladies who goes all in black. You don't see them anymore. Which might be
That they're doing it. They're doing it as a Chasidus, and the question would be that they're losing much more than they're gaining, and it's also to do such a thing. Besides this reason also. That would be right. It's definitely this, and probably much worse. That probably not in the scope of this parak. That is probably much worse.
It's still around. What? It's still around.
Yeah.
What is it? Could be asur.
It's definitely asur. Definitely asur. And they say stay far away from them.
These are the women in black.
It's quite a large number. I mean,
I don't think that it's from Chachamim. The Chachamim don't support it at all. It's not Chachamim at all. So that's a misplaced Chasidus Lagamri. The whole direction is off, and we get this from the Mesillas Yeshorim, that when he talks about Chasidus, he starts off, it has to be Chachamim. It's deep to be Chachamim, not what a person does by the whims. That's mamish a case of Mischazdim Atipshima, that's what he's coming lafuke. He's coming to exclude, not to do the Chasidus that's done with the person's whims and what he thinks how to serve Hashem. He's supposed to figure out from what Hashem wants. And all the Chachamim are against it. That would be an example of to go, not in the Mishkal Chasidus, but in what is Chasidus. Okay. This is a chiddush of the Mesillas Yeshorim, I think, that how he learns pshat in this pasuk. It says, we had it last week's of Torah, the week before already. To go privately with Hashem. So what is he translating that to mean? That when a person is going with Hashem on a Chasidus level, so he should do it in his privacy. He shouldn't do it in a place where it's going to be obvious to other people and they're not going to understand what he's doing. Many great Chassidim that had customs of Chassidus, but they refrained from those customs of Chassidus when they're in front of people because it looks like arrogance. So I think that Mesillas Yeshorim was putting everything together. Maybe we would have understood differently. But what's wrong with Mexiki? What's wrong with doing something which seems like it's arrogance? I know that in a person he knows he's not arrogant. If he's arrogant, he has a problem. He should go back to square one, go back to arrogance in the kiosk. But a person who knows he's not arrogant and he's doing something that most people wouldn't do, and he's not arrogant at all. He's really doing a Chasidus. He's on that level, and he's doing a L'Shem Shamayim. But people don't see it that way. They see it as arrogance. So you're not supposed to do it in public because it looks like arrogance. So how could you understand? What's the problem? What's the problem of something that appears to be arrogance? So you might say that it doesn't look good. It's like a Chilul Hashem, that you look like an arrogant person. I would have thought that's what the words say. It appears to be arrogance. The Mesillas Yeshorim seems to put it all together and says that that you're going to cause people to laugh and you're causing them to be punished because they're sinning at laughing at you. So don't do a Chasidus in front of them if you don't have to. If you could avoid doing it, don't do it. He puts the whole thing as one subject. You might say differently. Maybe you want to say that Mexico is a different aspect of not to do things in front of people because it shouldn't look like you're arrogant. That's also a bad thing in itself. But he doesn't seem to learn that way. He sums it up. Anything which is a fundamental principle of the mitzvah, an obligation that you must do, so then you do it in front of any ridicule. You don't care about ridicule. But anything which is not basic in the mitzvah, it's not obligated, so then if it's going to cause laughter and ridicule, so then don't do it. So he gave three examples of a Chasidus which, if you look deeper into it, it might cause ramifications that are not worthy, and therefore you're supposed to refrain from doing the Chasidus. One case was that if you're going to rebuke people who are not going to listen and they're just going to make the fire bigger, and they're going to do more averos because you're rebuking them. So don't rebuke. The second case is that if there's running to do a mitzvah, but because people are all fighting over the mitzvah, there's going to become it's going to cause the opposite. It's going to cause a degradation of the mitzvah, not to honor it, because everyone's fighting. So then you're supposed to hold back and the people that they refrain from doing it because they shouldn't cause a commotion and fighting. And the third one is that not to do a Chasidus in front of people that are going to ridicule him, and they're going to be punished because of you. So don't do the Chasidus because it's going to have bad ramifications. So the common denominator, the shorish of all this, is that you don't just look at the act that I'm doing, but you look at the ramifications. You look a step ahead, that what might be an outcome of a consequence of what I'm doing, and if that's not going to be worth it, so don't do it. Don't do the Chasidus. So he sums it up. Nim say salame. From here you learn shahabal is chasid chasidus amiti. If someone wants to do a true chasidus, tzarich sheyishkol kol maasav lefi hatolados and hamshachos mehem. He has to weigh all of his acts according to the consequences that are going to happen. The follow-up consequences, and to all other accompanying conditions. According to the time and the people that are there, and the subject at hand, and the place. Take everything into consideration. Is it going to cause more of a Kiddush Hashem by my act, or is it going to cause more of a Chilul Hashem? If restraining is going to cause more Kiddush Hashem and pleasure to Hashem than acting, so then refrain and don't act. Oh, Emasa Echad b'marisa hu tov, u'v'saldosav u'b'tanov hu ra, u'masa acher ra b'marisa u'v'tov b'taldosav, ha'kol holech acher achitim v'atoloda, shehi priya masa b'emes. If you have a choice of doing two acts, one superficially looks good, but the consequences or the conditions, the accompanying conditions are going to suffer, and you have another act that you can do, that initially it looks like it's not praiseworthy, but the consequences coming out are going to be praiseworthy. Everything goes according to the end. You judge the Chasidus by the consequences, by what comes out. Shehi priya masim be'emes. The tolada is the true product of the act. When you look at the act, let's look at the act. You look at the consequence. What comes out of it? What's going to be the peirot, the product of this act? Everything goes according to the product. So again, he said the whole time. He mentioned a few times. He's not talking about mitzvahs mamish. When it's a mitzvah, Hashem says do the mitzvah. You do the mitzvah. You don't think of the consequences. Someone asked. I don't know the answer. Is there never a time you also take the consequences into consideration by a mitzvah also? Don't you take any consideration? Is the mitzvah always absolute? The Mesillas makes it sound throughout the parak that mitzvahs are absolute and you don't make cheshbonos.
So should be when you do the mitzvah per hetzia or per nistar, but the consequences.
So that would be a chasidus. I mean, if you do the same mitzvah,
you do the same mitzvah.
You can. So then it's only.
But if you do the mitzvah in front of everybody, they will laugh at you, or you do it.
If you'd be able to do it, if you'd be able to do the mitzvah without the, so then you should do that also. There'd be no chasid. Would there be any? If you could do it in privacy, then there wouldn't be a chasidus to do it in public. There's no gain even in doing it in public. So then it wouldn't even be a issue of chasidus. If there'd be some reason like he couldn't do it in privacy, so then he's going to lose it.
Show everybody how great it is to make something.
He would think that in one case that there would be a level of chasidus because he's showing that he does mitzvahs and you also do mitzvahs. He's trying to make a persona for mitzvahs. But if it's going to cause ridicule, so then don't do it. But that would be also a chasidus, right?
Yeah, but if I say I have to, I don't know, laniach tefillin.
Right.
I do it on the street and in Amsterdam, everyone would laugh at me. But if I do it at home, nobody would laugh at me. It's the same mitzvah.
So there you're accomplishing the mitzvah. You're not going to lose out on the mitzvah. You're doing the mitzvah. But if
the consequence would be that people would laugh at you. So
don't do it. Don't do it in public.
Rav Nosson brings down in his parish on Mishabura that his father-in-law would daven mincha with his tefillin in the mirror, but be a chidus.
Since he wanted to wear, that there was who was it? The father of Rav Leza Yudel. One of the Rosh Yeshiva in Mir that he wanted to wear tefillin for mincha, and it was in a place where that wasn't the custom. Here in the Ramban, you could wear tefillin mincha because many people do, but in the place where he was,
in the mirror,
no one wore tefillin for mincha, and the Rosh Yeshiva himself wanted to wear tefillin for mincha, but it wasn't the custom. That wasn't the custom. So he used to daven privately. He didn't daven with a minyan, even though is preferable to daven in a tzibur, but it's more preferable to daven with tefillin than to daven with a tzibur. So he did it in Yeshivas, even though he could have done it in public. Probably no one would have laughed either. But he had a different shot in Mexico. They wouldn't laugh at him, but probably he thought that it would be considered arrogant. He's doing something nobody else does. So that's a mishkal Chasidus. So by mitzvahs of Leiziro. So by mitzvahs there also might be shikul sometimes. There might be sometimes that also overrides the mitzvah, but then it's not left up to. I think over there the point would be that it wouldn't be such a fine tuning of a balance as something you can ask a Rav. Usually, if there's going to be two mitzvahs, a mitzvah or something comes to clash with something else, so it doesn't have to have his Yosha Halevav and Eon and Bitachon over there. Can go to the Rav and ask him which thing overrides. But here, that it's left up to his own mishkal, so there's no Rav that can answer it. He has to know if this is a Chasidus or not, and if he's losing out more than he's gaining, and then he shouldn't do it. It's interesting. It sounds like these things are questions that you can't just ask a wise man. There's not going to be the answer. It has to be something. He says it has to be a leiv maven, seichel nachon. It has to have an understanding heart and a proper sense, the mind, intellect. Ki yefshel levar pratim shein lam kates. It's impossible to explain all the details that have no end. Endless details. Everything depends on the circumstances, and it's not an ironclad rule. It depends on taking everything into consideration. So therefore, Hashem will give wisdom. So somebody pointed out, one of the Mefarshim I saw, they point out that this leiv maven, seichel nachon, and Hashem yiten chachma, l'chora, is parallel to the three conditions he said before, that you have to be yasher shabal avavos, you have to have a pure heart, that you shouldn't have any other motivation except to do nachas ruach. That's going to be the leiv maven, and the seichel nachon means that you have to use your mind in order to focus on the issue to be able to figure it out, and you need Hashem's help. Hashem yiten chachma, that's the bitachon. It sounds very nice, like he seemed to intend to make these three conditions again. Well, he's going to bring one more story to explain a wrong cheshbon. He brought before two. He brought Gedali ben Achikam, and he brought about the story of Rabbi Chaim ben Avkulas to show that they made a miscalculated Chasidus. He's going to bring another story over here. In the other edition of the Mesillas Yeshorim, he asks this as a kasha, like a kasha teretz, that you're saying that Chasidus is a good thing. You find in Chazal someplace that Chasidus is not a good thing. And this is going to be the issue where he talks about, and he's going to explain because it was a misplaced Chasidus. There's a story about Rabbi Tarfon. So this is the background for this Gemara was that there's a machlokas b'shama b'silel, how are you supposed to say Kriya Shema? In what position are you supposed to say Kriya Shema? There's a mitzvah to say Kriya Shema every day in the morning and in the evening. In what position are you supposed to say it? So b'silel, the way we pass is you're allowed to say it in any position. Maybe lying down might be a question if you're lying, so you're supposed to, maybe that's one issue. Lying you can mamish, but reclining. So Beis Shammai says that in the morning, since it says uvakumecha when you rise, so you're supposed to say it standing up. You're supposed to say Kriya Shema in the morning in Beis Shammai shul. Everybody would stand up for Kriya Shema, and in the evening b'shachbacha, so they would say it in a reclining position. I don't think it means mamish lying, but a reclining position. That's Beis Shammai. In Beis Shammai shul, if you come in the morning, everybody stands for Kriya Shema, and you come in the evening, everybody's reclining for Kriya Shema. They still tells you allowed to do whatever you want. The pasuk doesn't mean that. So it's machlokes if you have to recline by saying Kriya Shema in the evening. Beis Shammai would say yes, but still says you do what you want. So Rabbi Tarfon was once going on the road, and he wanted to be machman like Beis Shammai, and he reclined. He was going on a donkey, I guess. There was a place that was a dangerous place. The Gemara says, the Mishnah says, and in order to be able to recline, he had to go off his donkey, his horse, and he put himself in danger. And he thought that he did a Chasidus, that he was Moser Nefesh to do the Chasidus of Beis Shammai. And they told him that if you would have been put in danger, if the danger would have happened to you, it would have been your own fault. They rebuked Rabbi Tarfon when they found out what he did. They rebuked him for doing that Chasidus. So the question arises: why? He was being Chassid. He was doing a Chasidus. The story of Rabbi Tarfon is going to prove the point. He was more stringent upon himself to recline the way Beis Shammai holds. He's supposed to recline by Kriya Shema in the evening. And they told him that you would have been responsible if you would have been in danger. It would have been your own fault because you transgressed the words of Beis Hillel, who say you don't have to. So Beis Hillel doesn't say you're not allowed to. They just say you don't have to. So what's wrong? He wanted to be a machmir. So the simple pshat I would have thought a little different than the Mesillas Shama would have thought, because you're putting yourself in danger. You don't be machmir at a point of danger. But the Mesillas Shama has a different pshat, and what was wrong with his Chasidus. Afal pi shemachmir hoya, he was being more stringent. He wasn't being more lenient. He was being more stringent. So what's the problem? The Mesillas Shama is going to explain, because of the machlokes b'Shammai b'Hillel, there was a split in the Sanhedrin that had to divide into two houses. I think the historians explained that it wasn't because there was a machlokes. They really would have had one Sanhedrin. It was because the government, the Roman government, didn't allow Sanhedrin to convene as the central authority of Am Yisrael. So they couldn't make a Sanhedrin. They had to make two separate Batei Medrash as if they're just the Beis Medrash and not the central authority of Am Yisrael's legislative branch. So they had to make two houses, Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel. The Mesillas Shama doesn't talk about that, but I think that's how it is historically. I think there's a Rishonim, maybe Isaac Halevi, I think that's the way he explains it. So, but the Maisa, there was a Chalukah, there were two camps, there was Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel. And when it came to a point that we wanted to paskin, we had to have that it shouldn't be two Torahs. It shouldn't be that Am Yisrael is divided into two religions. You have the Beis Shammai people and the Beis Hillel people. So when they came to the maskana that Allah is like Beis Hillel, so it's dafka not right to do like Beis Shammai. Even if Beis Shammai is a chumrah, even if Beis Shammai is more stringent, but in order to establish that the law is like Beis Hillel, so it's better not to be machmir. On the issue of being machmir like Beis Shammai would be on an individual mitzvah, so he did something better. But the loss is much greater than the gain, because if people are not sure who the halacha is going to be like, then again you can have two camps, and it's going to be the Beis Shammai people, the Beis Hillel people. It's going to become a machlokes in Am Yisrael, and that was very dangerous. So in order to uphold the unity of Am Yisrael, that the halacha should be like Beis Hillel, it would be a better Chasidus not to do like the Chumrah of Beis Shammai. That's how he explains the issue of Rabbi Tarfon. There was a heavy issue in Am Yisrael because of the machlokes, the split between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Again, I don't think the Gemara says they loved each other. It wasn't a machlokes of hatred. It was of circumstance that they had to split. But who's the halacha like? What are you going to do now? You have two separate Batei Medrash, each one has their own vote, and they came to their own maskana. And now, what do the people outside do? For Sof, Nigmar Shalacha Beis Hillel Olam. And it came to the conclusion, the Chazal decided, the halacha shall be like Beis Hillel. Hinei Kiyum Shal Torah, Shegemar Din Zeh, Yishor B'chol Tokef, La'adu Lo Me'olamim. So in order to uphold the Torah, it was necessary that this psak should remain in its full strength forever. That the halacha should be like Beis Hillel. For lo yechlash b'shum panim, it shouldn't be weakened. This decision should be upheld. The halacha is like Beis Hillel. Shalo teyosef Torah chas v'shalom shtei Torahs. The Torah shouldn't become divided into two separate Torahs. The Torah Beis Shammai, Torah Beis Hillel. V'alkein l'dasa mishnah zos yosef Chasidus hu hachazik Beis Hillel afilu kula v'lachmi Beis Shammai. So this mishnah that reprimanded Rabbi Tarfon for being machmir, this mishnah holds that it's more of a Chasidus to hold like Beis Hillel, even in a lenient law, rather than to be stringent like Beis Shammai. This should be eyes for us to see. This should be an example, this halacha here, that even not to do a chumrah, that which is the road that light really resides, and in truth, to do what's good in the eyes of Hashem. To zoom out, not just to be zoomed into one act that you're doing, but to be broad and have a big peripheral vision and see down the road what could happen from this act, and don't just look at the Chasidus of what it is right now, but what could happen. That's the Mishkal of Chasidus, not just to look at the act that is at hand, but to see all the consequences that can come as a result. Yeshikar.